Do you really think someone who was at regionals in 19 could have beat 11?
Froning in 12.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I do.
I mean, I don't pay attention as much as you do, but that's crazy.
Yeah.
I hope we get a lot of fucking drama in the comments about that.
Yeah. Look.
But you truly believe, you're not just saying that?
No, I think it would be definitely competitive. I mean, maybe not last place in the regionals.
Like where in regionals? What place in regionals?
I think
from 17. 18.
Last place of the games would have won the games from back then. That
would have beat Froning.
I think so.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
Take it back.
I really do genuinely believe that. But maybe I could be proven wrong. This could be some statistician in the comments.
I hope Rich is out there and he gets this. We can throw down.
Fuck this guy. Where was I? Beginners. Okay.
Yeah, so you said tips for beginners.
All right.
Who's the second group? Now I'll let you go back.
All right, amateurs. Let's say those people are maybe just more serious in classes and do local comps. Then like
they've started to compete.
Yeah, they're into competing. Then like I'm going to classify this as pros, but just say top 20 in the world, aiming for sanctionals, aiming for a national championship type thing. And then the last group would probably be gym owners. So those 4 groups of people, I think, kind of need to approach it all with a little bit different of a mind state and expectations.
When you say gym owners, you mean the gym owner?
Yeah, the owner of a gym. Or maybe you could also call that like coach of a CrossFit affiliate.
Okay. My interest is piqued. Let's hear the tips.
Well, the first is that the beginners need to probably set realistic expectations. I think I did actually in our last camp a talk about the stories people tell themselves when they get into competitions. I called them fantastical stories. And they're very naive when you first get into competing. You just don't really understand what's required to compete or what you're gonna feel when you're competing. Like, you're like, oh, it's just gonna be like a class workout. And to some extent it is. However, the level of pressure and accountability and time and the fact that all of this energy is in the environment and people have judges and all of that, it heightens things to a level that you're not really prepared for. And I think going into your first competition with some sort of like, I'm gonna win this class is just a bad idea. Just go in with expectations that your goal is to survive it and just see where you are. Like, I don't like to set people up for failure, but setting as low of expectations as possible so that you could have a good experience and feel like you can build on that first experience as opposed to your first competitive experience being traumatic. Because
you don't go into your first spelling bee thinking you're just going to spell all the words right.
Yeah, onomatopoeia. And then I think on top of that, practicing. So I know in the open, there's probably affiliates who don't abide directly by the rule book and don't have judges.
What leads you to think this?
Just a guess about human nature. Yeah. But I think it would be good practice if you think you are going to want to compete in the future to get a judge, even if they haven't done the judges course, just to hold you accountable, because it's hard when you're in that type of environment to know, is my depth at full depth or not? So, are my feet going over this line?
And maybe your brain chemistry is totally different too when you know someone's watching.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if you're not trying to cheat, just knowing, you know.
Yeah, just having the accountability in the first place.
Yeah.
And then movement quality / safety. I feel like your first competition, you shouldn't really take any risks of putting yourself outside of like what you consider your safety zone. Not your comfort zone, because you should get uncomfortable, but not like...
Example?
Like you're doing chest to bar pull-ups, your hand tears in the workout, you start to feel something weird in your shoulder, you go to hang there and you're like, you get this thought in your head like, this doesn't feel right. Maybe as a beginner, that's not the time where you start to figure out how to like go supinated grip on one hand and start repping out singles like, you know, this, like somebody you saw that was a higher level competitor do in an earlier heat when they got through 100 chest to bars and their hands ripped.
Have you seen a lot of beginners make this mistake?
Yeah, I've seen beginners, early competitors try to emulate the mentality, approach, aggressiveness, ferocity of somebody that they look up to too soon. And it doesn't really work because the ability to have that type of approach, I think, is contingent upon the years of development it took to get there. So I think it just makes sense to like stay in your lane for a while and just get used to, you know, being a beginner.
So that's all of it for beginners, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So then amateurs.
Amateurs, I'd say the first thing an amateur competitor needs to do has set very clear goals about what the 5 weeks of the Open are, and then adhere to them. And the reason I say that is because some people are like amateur competitors, they know they need to get better at something. Then they have I'm doing the Open for fun.
Week 1, they're all in, and then week 2, they're...
Yeah, either that, where they can't survive the attrition, where they just give up, like, in week 3, or they're really determined to be one and done so they can keep their training going, and then after week 1, they get smashed in the face, and then on Monday, either they deviate from their program and just do it, or they ask to have their program changed so then they can start repeating workouts. And now they're going through the 5 weeks of the Open, repeating every workout, and not getting any training in.
So this is the thing that happens, you've seen it a lot, this plan change.
Oh, for sure.
Sell me and sell everybody here on not changing the freaking plan.
Well, you have to have a goal, and when you have a goal and you set a plan to start it, if you had a goal of like a 3-day competition, you're gonna stick to and adhere to that, unless something radical happens in your life in that 3 days, or like you hurt yourself and you gotta pull out, whatever. In order to evaluate that competition, you need to be in one headspace with one clear focus about what those 3 days mean. The Open kind of, it's cool and it sucks in some capacity. That's 5 weeks long.
That's a long time.
Yeah, that 5 weeks, in order to look back and evaluate how you did, you need to know that you were in a certain headspace with a certain approach for that entire 5 weeks. If you're in one headspace in week 1, and then a different one in week 2, and then a different week 3, and then a different week 4, at the end of that competition, I'd be like, you need to evaluate why the hell you're doing this in the first place and what you're actually trying to accomplish from this competition, so that we can evaluate it moving forward and know what you need to do better. But without a clear, like, hey, this is my plan, I'm gonna try to stick to it, then you don't know what mistakes you made relative to that plan because you just kept changing the plan.
Why do you think people change the plan?
I don't think they can deal with the reality most of the time. Like,
how can we help them fix that?
Coaching would definitely help to have somebody.
Yeah, but I'm sure you've had
accountable.
athletes who just, even though you were coaching them, they just ignored you. Or
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, how? Like, why? What can they do to just?
I mean, I think that's a personal decision people have to make for themselves. It's like, this is why.
I guess that's why I
doing
said sell us on it, because
Yeah, like why?
Yeah, like,
what benefit does that give you?
Yeah,
I feel like that's what makes you better. If you're just constantly, it's like blog hopping. I feel like, how many of the highest level people in the world in any sport do you find that are like, oh, I had 17 different coaches and philosophies and strategies that I used to get myself to the highest level? Most of them, it's like, 3 or 4 coaches throughout the course of their athletic history, and they stay with that coach for a long period of time until they feel like they can't learn anything else, or there's some sort of a conflict, and then they switch. And you have to get used to that approach, that way of thinking. You have to go through with that plan. You have to make mistakes on that plan. And then over time, that's how you evolve and get better. If you're constantly disliking a certain aspect of what you're doing and then changing it, I feel like you're constantly just navigating up and down like this. You're not necessarily moving in any sort of forward direction.
So, sticking to the plan, setting the goal, sticking to the plan.
Yeah.
Was there anything else for amateurs?
I think if you decide that you're going to repeat workouts, I think that this group of people should start to video review, analyze their workouts, analyze their movements. Then for each workout, also write down, what do I need to do moving forward that's going to help me get better at whatever was exposed in this workout.
Isn't that something that's in that competition manual we just put
Yeah,
together?
the competition
Like
manual
that little
should,
sheet?
yeah, competition manual should help with that. We're also going to do so we have a content schedule coming out for the Open. The second thing that's coming out is I'm going to actually do the workout on Saturday and go through like how you can redo the workout, some thoughts for different levels of athletes so that people can
I'll
actually
pause you
think
right there.
about
We'll
it.
plug all the stuff later. So
Okay.
let's get back on track. So, sorry, I did that.
Go ahead.
But you were saying amateur, you were thinking that was pretty much it for them, that they needed to watch video review.
Yeah. Figure out how to get better on the same workout in a short period of time. And I think that's important now more than ever, because unless this format changes, every single one of these